We're going towards 10 minutes past 10 Central Africa time, about to speak about when to keep quiet and when to speak out in the workplace. Do you know how to navigate those dynamics? Do you know when is the right time to say, the thing that my colleague is doing, is it serious enough for me to take it forward, or should I just stay silent this time around? We'll be having that conversation after this.
Darubini ya Afrika na I am Henry Shakif.
Tumeona chapisho mapema hii leo ya kwamba Wizara ya Mambo ya Nje ya nchini Marekani imesema inapitia upya uhusiano wake na nchi ya Tanzania. Pengine taarifa hii imepokelewaje na wananchi wa Tanzania?
Cha kwanza tumeiona taarifa ambayo imetoka hii leo. Sisi kwetu taarifa hii haikutushangaza wala haikutushtua kwa sababu tulishaona taarifa kama hiyo imetoka kwenye ubalozi wa Marekani nchini Tanzania, ikiwa imetolewa na Bwana Tom Pigot.
Umezungumza kwa kina kabisa. Haya ni malalamiko ambayo yamekuwa yakijitokeza mara kwa mara. Unadhani sasa wana hoja ya msingi?
Unauliza maswali mazuri sana na maswali ya tafakari. Maswali ambayo hayawezi kujibiwa kwa dakika moja au kwa siku moja. Ni maswali yanayohitaji utafiti, yanayohitaji kusoma.
Darubini ya Afrika kila Jumatatu hadi Ijumaa kuanzia saa 11 kamili hadi saa 12 kamili jioni majira ya Afrika ya Kati.
Step into the heart of the day on the move with Palisa and Benjamin.
You know, the older you get, you realize that some of the environments that we were socialized into as young people were preparing us for a world when we were adults and we had to make certain decisions. So in the classroom, there's going to be a couple of kids. They say, this one stole my pencil. But there's also going to be another situation where you have to say, well, ma'am, this one, copied in an exam, which is a really big offense. Similarly, in the workplace as well, these situations are things that we have to decide on, whether your colleague is bending a rule or taking credit for work they didn't do, and other times much bigger fraud, safety risks, or serious misconduct in the workplace. When do you know to speak up and to keep quiet? We're exploring the decisions employees face when they notice wrongdoing within the office environment and the impact of speaking up or not speaking up. Michael Bagraim is joining us on the line, labor law specialist. Michael, I'm not sure if I was the teacher's pet or the tattletale in my school class, but now as, colleagues, as an adults, we still have to make the same decisions that we made even back then, don't we?
Absolutely. And the bottom line is many of us in South Africa choose to rather keep quiet. We're always worried that there'll be repercussions, and especially at the workplace. People say my job will be on the line. I'm reporting that my employer's doing something criminal or something untoward. They're defrauding a customer or something of that nature. So what we've got in South Africa, and that's whistleblowing, but what we've got is an act of parliament called the Protected Disclosures Act 2000. It's Act 26 of 2000. It's an important piece of legislation, but we need to be sure that when we're making this protected disclosure, that we follow the proper procedure, which is quite complicated, mind you, and also that we know what we're saying has got veracity to it. Because I've unfortunately, and in fact 2 weeks ago, had a situation where an employee actually wanting to cause trouble for the employer because the employee didn't get an increase in salary, then went to some of the donors and said the donations that are coming in, they now are looking at it and saying they're spending it irregularly, unfairly, and all that sort of thing. Now, that person didn't make the protected disclosure in terms of the legislation. So please, employees and anyone who's making some sort of whistleblowing exercise, please have a look at Act number 26 of 2000, because it's absolutely vital that you get the protection of the legislation, but you can only get the protection if you do it properly, and it's not so easy. And if you've got something really serious to say, try and get some legal advice. It's always best to do that.
Okay, Michael, let's slow down a little bit. I know we're going all the way to legislation, but there's a huge scale of things that may take place within the scope of the workplace, right? And some of them would be someone finding maybe a shortcut to how the work is done. It might not be the shortcut that you guys were told that, the system needs to do. But if you find a shortcut and you're still, reaching your levels, your colleague is like, oh, okay, is that how you do it? And you know that it's not really allowed to be done that way. Is that something that is offensive? And I mean, we're speaking from a scale of that all the way to large scale corruption. So how do we gauge the things that require management, the things that require HR, and sometimes the things that require the law?
Well, you see, if you're going to hide behind a protected disclosure, it's got to be something serious. It can't be someone who is ducking out at tea time for an extra half hour.
Yeah.
And then you want to now make the disclosure because you actually don't like the person or you think it's unfair. That's not protected disclosure. Protected disclosure is specifically, or they offer you protection when you disclose information relating to an offense or a malpractice in the workplace. So a malpractice is something that's verging on illegal. It can't be, I know the two in the office and they're stealing a pencil. You've got to be very careful. And unfortunately, the South African employees today are looking at what they call whistleblowing about anything. And they're saying, well, we've caused a bit of trouble, but you can't actually pick on us because we are hiding behind the protected disclosure legislation. That's not what we're talking about. It's not what we're talking about in the classroom where I've seen Cheryl lean over my shoulder and look at my answer. You can't make that protected disclosure. So you get Cheryl into trouble by phoning the police or something. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about serious legislation. Yes, I know that people are always scared to come forward on anything in terms of the legislation. And we as citizens in this country tend to be fearful. We've come from an apartheid past that was a police regime. And so you're very careful about what you say about whom. But we also come from a situation that where we are now, you're too fearful, and the government wants people to come forward and actually tell us what's going on. Like if there's fraud, you want to know about it. And the best to do it is, obviously, if you can, get to a lawyer, that's good. If there is a legal office in your employment situation, go and speak to someone in the legal office or in HR. A lot of people don't want to do that because they say, well, HR is going to go tell the management the protected disclosure is against the management, I'm going to get fired. But you can then claim that you followed the process and now you can't take any action against me.
It's very, very complicated what you're speaking about, Michael, because many people don't know what is a scenario or a circumstance that is fraudulent or could be characterized as serious misconduct. Could you help us navigate these definitions?
It's very difficult because the legislation is a little bit vague in itself. If you're making a disclosure to a legal person, someone who gives legal advice, and most companies have either their own lawyers or they've got an in-house legal advisor or HR. If you can go to them, then you get them and you're going not to make the disclosure, but to ask for advice, to say to that person at HR, I've picked up something. I'm not sure if it's entirely true. I'm not sure if it's troublemaking on my side, but I think there's something irregular. And can you give me advice if I tell you, I want to tell you in the protection of the Protected Disclosure Act? Then you are following the procedure fully. You haven't come out and made a vicious statement. There's no skin there involved. You're saying, I'm worried. I think the person who is doing the buying is understating what the buying is and taking the lot for herself or himself. Please advise me what I must do. And then you're getting advice from someone in HR or in the legal team or even the external lawyers. Then you're fully protected, and it could be about anything. That's the lowest form of making the statement. The highest form is when you tell the person in the desk next to you, saying, I think Michael Bagraim is stealing, and this is why I think he's stealing. Now, you've got to be careful about that, because that's a person who can't give you advice, the person sitting next to you, and also that person then might use that as Skinner to say that Michael Bagraim is a thief. And then you're not protected, because then you're going to face a disciplinary hearing and you're going to get fired.
Ooh.
So you need to tell someone in authority without mentioning Michael Bagraim to say that I think one of my colleagues is stealing, and what do I do? Because then you're protected, because then they're going to give you advice what you should do. And even better if you can record that conversation that you've had with that person in authority. There's certain people that you can, obviously you can speak to the police and you would be protected. You can speak to a minister or a member of the Executive Council. There are all sorts of people that the Act outlines, and it is quite complicated. But what I'm saying is hide behind someone who's got authority and go to that person and say, give me advice. I think I've found a problem over here. Give me advice. Because then you're saying, I'm not doing it just to get Michael Bagraim into trouble. I'm doing it because I'm worried. Because now I've seen it, and it's my civic duty as a citizen to come forward, or it's my duty as an employee. I owe a duty of care to my employer.
All right, Michael, we need to take a break. Stay on the line. We'll come back. We're speaking to labor law specialist Michael Bagraim, and we'll continue this conversation on when to raise your voice in the workplace and when to stay silent.
Conversations are happening, and Channel Africa is at the heart of them. We tell the African story with clarity, pride, and purpose, reaching audiences that matter to your brand. Partner with us and connect your business with listeners across borders in multiple languages and markets. For partnership opportunities, sponsorship, or sales, email us at partnership@channelafrica.co.za. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
On the Move, weekdays, 9 a.m. to midday.
Only on Channel Africa. #On the Move.
Hey, this is our In the Cubicle conversation, speaking workplace issues. And today, Michael Bagraim, a labor law specialist, is helping us speak about how do you raise wrongdoing, maybe a fraudulent occurrence. How do you speak up? Who do you go to? Do you feel like you can trust the organization to take that even forward? Michael, that's a big question, isn't it? What happens if you are brave enough? Because this does need a lot of bravery to say, okay, this is what's happening. You go to HR or you go to that legal expert or that trusted boss, and then they take what you say. But then over time you see, I've actually put myself in a compromising situation here because nothing is being done and I'm not getting an update around that issue.
You're absolutely right. And of course, in this country, I suppose in most countries, I don't know the situation there, but in this country, a lot of people get fired after making the disclosure, and then there's an argument as to whether it's protected. A lot of people are basically hounded afterwards by their colleagues or their bosses. And some people even get injured, and some people get killed. And we remember the Decoran case where she came forward and she was then murdered because of that protected disclosure. And hers was an actual protected disclosure. You remember in the hospital case in Gauteng. So what I'm trying to say is, if you're going to make that disclosure, the best is to try and actually read the legislation if you can. I know it's complicated, and even myself as a lawyer, before this program now, I went and brushed up on it, and I thought, wow, this is a little bit of a nightmare to even navigate for a lawyer. But at the end of the day, it's absolutely vital that what you're doing is you're not actually doing something vindictive, that you're not picking on someone, because as a protected disclosure, you need to show and prove that it wasn't there to get someone back. It was there because you want to protect. And in fact, I'm putting a lot of the blame on the employers of South Africa, because I know in other jurisdictions, for instance, in Australia, it's incumbent upon every employer to have a protected disclosure policy in the company. And we are seeing it more and more. I draw up these policies for companies where they have outlined in very simple terms what you should be doing, and you can even do it anonymously. So, then you've got nothing to gain because you haven't said it's Michael Bagraim. What you've said is, as an employee, I'm putting my disclosure into a little box at HR. Not it's been typed out, doesn't come from my computer. It's there in writing. You can't trace me, but this is what's happened. My problem is, as a labor lawyer, I'm getting more and more cases where people are getting others back, are trying to drop the company into trouble because they are worried that they didn't get the increase or someone was rude to them. It's unbelievable. By the end of 2025, I had a deluge of these cases that there was no iota of truth at all. And when we investigated it more carefully, we found it was people who were being vindictive. And of course, they do get dismissed, and then they go to the CCMA or the Labour Court, and they say no to protected disclosure. And then I'm there as a lawyer, and I say, okay, can you please outline the procedure that you used to actually make this protected disclosure? And they use no procedure. So you've got to be very careful. It cuts both ways. But I think the companies, every employer, has an obligation to educate their staff as to how you can make that disclosure. Now, I'm sure you've seen most companies have phone this number and you can make an anonymous tip-off. That's probably the best way to do it, because then no one can point a finger at you and say, you're trying to cause trouble. And if there's no veracity to it, then they drop it. You can't come afterwards and say, well, you've done nothing about it because you're doing it anonymously. But you are quite right. People are scared. I think I'd be scared, quite frankly, if my most valuable asset that I have today is my job. With the unemployment rife like it is, your job is very valuable and you don't want to put it at risk. But then on the other hand, we can't be a nation of sissies. We need to come forward and say this is wrong. This is undermining the system. This is undermining our tax system, everything. We do need people to come forward. And I know SARS have a hotline. I know most of the departments of government have hotlines where you can actually come forward and make the allegation. Unfortunately, they don't always investigate these things. So you get people coming back to me afterwards saying, I phoned, I left messages, I've sent in emails, and there's been no investigation at all. It's not perfect, but we're getting there. And most companies are starting to put into place protected disclosure policies.
Yeah. Are there instances, Michael, perhaps maybe you think something is happening and you're not sure? Are there instances where you should just let it go, or maybe wait until you actually have evidence of what you're about to say? Because I know you're saying that so many people out there are afraid to lose their jobs, but we've heard whistleblower stories. Most people are actually afraid to lose their lives as well when it comes to these whistleblower stories. And we think these are stories only that happen, in instances of big companies, big corporates, government, etc. But I mean, we've heard about assassinations in schools, people who are like just teachers. And when you whistleblow, you could also be afraid of your life. Is there an instance where you should say, yeah, this time around, maybe it's not my place to say anything, or perhaps once I've gained enough evidence of what I'm about to say, then I should say it? And also, you could also be putting someone else's reputation on the line if you're not really sure what you're saying.
Yeah, and that's the personal problem that we all have. I was a client of mine, just as an anecdotal story that happened to me a year ago. A client of mine had a theft ring in the warehouse, and one of the employees was about a week into that theft ring. One of the employees had come to work late, and they gave him a written warning, and he blurted out, it's all very well, I was 15 minutes late, I get a warning, but a whole group of them are stealing and nothing's been done about that. And we immediately come down like a ton of bricks on the poor fellow who said that out of desperation. And we turned to Briggs and we said, well, it's your obligation to come forward. You've been watching this and you did nothing. And his answer, and a very honest and truthful answer, was, I'm scared. I said that because I'm so angry now that I got a written warning. I'm the only one in this warehouse that's not stealing. You know, we obviously thanked him very much for doing this, and then we put now a policy in place where people can do it anonymously. And even if you've got a feeling in your water, you don't know, but you've got a feeling in the water, there's something very fishy. Cheryl last week was walking around the office saying that she needed a loan for some bus money, and yesterday she arrived in a brand new car. There's something very fishy about that. You'd like to actually tell management that this is weird.
Yeah.
What's going on? You know?
All right,
and
Michael.
we see that often as well.
That's true. We'll leave it there, though. We've run out of time. Thank you so much for your time on this one. I think it's such an important thing. We need more whistleblowers in our society, but we also need more protection for whistleblowers in our societies as well, so that people aren't afraid to come forward with information, and also that people know when is the right time to shush and the right time to actually speak. Thank you so much, Michael, for your time. That's labor law specialist Michael Bagraim, helping us understand the whistleblowing dynamics of the workplace. It's 10:30 Central Africa time. Let's get our latest sports news.